Thanks, Josh. It's so nice to be with you all. And it's good to see some old friends. Roger, it's nice to see you actually at the center, although I imagine that's a digital background. And Jennifer, nice to see you. And thank you for digging into the archive and giving us some really helpful material, which I'll maybe talk about in a minute. And it's good to be with all the rest of you. RIT has a very special place in the Vignelli life of Lella and Massimo and their own preservation of their legacy, and that plus getting to know some of you can make it a very special place in my heart. So it's great to be with you all today. I put together, I thought maybe it would just be helpful to tell you what happened and to show you some photographs and give you a sense of where we're at. We don't know precisely what the future is going to bring for us because we're still in the midst of mitigation, which I realize is just, I've come to realize is just a nicer way to say demolition. And so I can give you a sense of what happened and where we're at and why, and then maybe field some questions. And then maybe in future, it would be wonderful to think together about the ways in which, particularly archive already activated, again, a reference Jennifer, we could keep a dialogue going. So let me see if I can share my screen. I think I can, which is great. Let me pull this up here. Just so you know, when I go into full screen mode on my computer, I can't page through anybody any longer through the gallery view. So if you have a question, just stop me and ask. I won't be able to see you waving a hand. So this is the culprit. This is the water main on Lexington Avenue. You can see it running underneath there. It's a 20-inch fresh water main that broke at 53rd and Lexington. We don't know precisely what time it broke, but initially we thought that it was the water infiltration was coming from somewhere in the center, but it turns out, no, it was outside the center's common foundation. And this water main break was massive. We initially thought, oh, we're talking about a couple thousand gallons of water coming from small pipe. No, this was a 20-inch main carrying fresh water, thanks be to God, fresh water, not sewage, down Lexington Avenue, and dumped in the range of hundreds of thousands of gallons of water into Citigroup Center. The only way to sort of tell this story is to take some of these slides out of time. So in the sense, some of them might be showing some things cleaned up, others not cleaned up, different states. It's just the only way to really piece together at least the visual story of what happened. But here's the Sunken Plaza outside the church building at the base of the tower, if you're familiar with the way this building works. And what you're looking at here is a massive buildup of mud. This first stair is probably where this mud was coming up to, about 8 inches or so of mud. But you can see along the outline of the church up to the first horizontal mullion in the door there, you can see that this was just a repository of water until, of course, water being water will find the next place to go. So that water main breached the foundation of the center, started to pour into the plaza, filled up the plaza. It didn't go so far as to go penetrate into the first floor level of the tower or the first floor level of the new shopping mall area atrium, but we're a little bit below that. So everything came into us. This is a view of standing water a little bit later. You can see how the plaza has emptied into the church. And if you look at that sort of upper area of the plaza, you can see that's also wet and mud. The other place that had significant, massive damage is the subway station that runs right below us. That was shut down. All this water just needed to keep finding the bottom, and it kept moving. So another view of the back of the sanctuary, you can see that we're not just looking here at standing water, but also standing mud. This is a number of hours. This picture is taken maybe 4 or 5 hours after the water main was actually shut off. So that gives you a sense of it. Here is yet another view of showing, essentially water just at some point penetrated those windows, the doors, everything just sort of came on rushing in. And that we have so much mud in the building will give you some sense of the intensity and the amount of water that came into this building, because we're not talking about water simply passing through those small little openings. We're talking about massive amounts of mud. So this is a view, upper view of the sanctuary flooded. Again, this is a couple of hours after the water main was sort of shut down. You can see that the water and mud level is not all that high. That's the good news for the sanctuary. One of the reasons the water is not all that high is if you look over to where the piano is, that seating area, the riser seating, the wooden riser seating, that void underneath there runs around the entire perimeter of the sanctuary. That's where all the return air ducts are for the HVAC system. They're located in the floor. There's wonderful minimalism behind that void. And so both over there by the piano, and if you look where one of our crew is standing dressed in blue on the right-hand side, there's also a return air duct there. There's a return air duct essentially around the whole perimeter. That's what saved the sanctuary. That's what, I'm not going to use the word save. That's what contributed to not greater damage in the sanctuary, was the capacity for this water, like the old kids game, chutes and ladders, to be taken somewhere else. It went down a chute, it went downstairs to the lower level. And the lower level was really the bucket that really collected the vast majority of these hundreds of thousands of gallons of water. So here's the back staircase. Sorry for the blurry photograph. This is taken several hours after. This is in the afternoon. We still had water running down this staircase. Earlier, it was a gushing, an unplanned water feature, because this, to the right-hand side here, is Lexington Avenue. The right-hand wall here that you're looking at is the part of the perimeter wall of the retaining wall of the building, and that was just breached. There was no stopping this water. We're now on the lower level. We're in what was formerly called the Heritage Room. It's now become a music library. Jennifer, this will probably, you never want this to happen to your space. This was just horrific. Water coming in through the ceiling, and then water building up on the ground because of the water coming down those staircases and essentially flooding. So we had both a classic flood on the lower level plus water from above. It was as though there was no roof on the building. This just resulted in, everything just soaked. And as you can see, we have some good archival files for music, and then we have some don't ever do this again files on an open bookshelf. We've learned a lot in this process. This is a video. So that's our experience on that lower level. Water needed to come down somewhere, and it found a way through those HVAC ducts, through any, we have some cabling that runs in the sanctuary floor. Anywhere it could penetrate, it did. That back room, Jennifer, is our archive. Horrible, I know, we need help. We need an archive makeover. And it just was horrific. I mean, 150 years worth of material just literally rained on the whole room. This outer room here, it was more of a classic flood. Most of the water was in that back room in the where the archive is. So what did we do? We fortunately, given our work with the Nevelson, restoring the Nevelson Chapel, we have a very good relationship with conservators. So one of the very first calls I made, flying down Interstate 95 from New Haven to New York City to respond to this, I called the conservator, and she said, you need these folks called Polygon that specialize in this kind of damage. They will come, they take everything and it goes to a freezer, and it literally sits on ice until, not literally ice, but figuratively, until you're ready to begin a conservation process. So we took some 480 boxes of material out of the archive, and this is one of the folks who was hired to help us. My job was to stand at that door and label what was coming out. And so you can see this is the 150th anniversary. This was excruciating for me because I watched 150 years of the church's history pass before my eyes and needed to identify all these things. It's just really very, very hard. Here's another video of the way the water was coming down in the back room.
Oh my God, the archive.
Sorry, I got teared up there for a minute. This is the, we have been with a bequest from a member of the congregation who died a couple of years ago. We were able to finally, the church ran out of money when it was building. And so it didn't have a real proper sacristy where all of the material is kept for the services. And so we had been working on redesigning the sacristy, and we were at the 95th percentile in terms of being completed. That video you just saw is of water coming down directly from the sanctuary into the sacristy, which is just below it, pouring through all those light fixtures. And this is a photograph of, we've had the standing mud and water was removed by the time we took this photograph, but you can see that, this room was pretty well, both on the floor and the ceiling. At moments of times, the ceiling was like a big balloon just holding water. And these are our newly designed carts, sort of pick up the echoes of the wood in the sanctuary. Everything from the sacristy needs to be taken upstairs, so we built these carts both to house the material and then to transport them. This is just soaked, the whole thing with water. Here's an example of what I mean by an unplanned water feature. Water just sort of pouring and pouring and pouring and pouring, like a river, just running through the lower level of the church. Here's the music room. This beautiful acoustical paneling designed by the Vignellis, underwater, and the theater underwater. And this will give you a sense of how the water, this is just right below the sanctuary. This is water. So you have both the, flood banks of the river, but also the ceiling, another view of that ceiling damage. The water also penetrated in because it came in the retaining walls into the mechanical room. And the water was, this is taken a little bit later, the amount of pressure that was pouring into there totally ripped apart all of the ductwork that has insulation on it, just literally clawed away at it. We're about halfway down. The mechanical room is situated about halfway down to the lowest level. And then, so that's it for the damage photos. Here's what we've done so to date. We're in one of the theater dressing rooms. All of that material has been removed, a so-called flood cut. The whole lower level now has had everything removed 4 feet down. The vast majority of the ceilings have been removed, further removal of ceiling than what you see here on this photograph. Even all the flooring has been removed. As you can imagine, we had a massive buildup of mold. So we've pulled a number of mold permits and have mitigated all of that mold in negative pressure little rooms that get created with plastic. It kind of looked like for a little while of a set of ET down here. Here's a picture going back to the sacristy. This is the sacristy now. The entire thing has had to be removed. We were able to, we think, be able to salvage that little Terrell-like light that goes up and gives the light there in the center of the room. But the whole thing is totally gutted. It was one of the heaviest hit rooms in the building. The theater, all of the seating has been removed. The floor, this picture is taken with the floor still intact. The floor has been removed. Floor is kind of a wooden springboard type of floor, infested with mold. Here's the music room, cleared of all of its water. We've removed all of that acoustical paneling. The carpeting, the acoustical paneling will be restored. But this is sort of what we've done. And then here, this is the sanctuary cleared of its vast majority of its mud. You still see dirt on the ground and the organ in place. Unfortunately, this was one of the things, these blowers, these high-speed blowers, which are blowing the mud and trying to avoid the development of mold, a very important thing, and dehumidifiers, et cetera. It also had the unfortunate reality that it created a silt, and this silt was being blown around this room. And so the organ is covered in silt. So for 2 reasons now, the organ has been entirely removed. It's now up at the C.B. Fisk shop in Gloucester, Massachusetts. For 2 reasons. One, the instrument entirely needs to be cleaned of all of this silt. The way reed pipe in particular, just a little leg of a fly, it's often said in organ building, a leg of a fly will cause a reed pipe to stop speaking. So you can imagine buildup of silt. This is not good. Then also, in order to clean this space, we knew we needed to remove the organ, and we'll also need to remove offsite all of the pews and all of the wooden riser seating that's around the perimeter, again, to be able to get underneath those voids. One of the things we found when we removed the organ entirely is the cavity that the organ essentially leaves bare in the middle of that riser seating over there. It's just, it's got, mud here in the sanctuary. Now we're just have dirt, but over there is mud buildup. So that's a quick look through what transpired and the level of damage. We're still learning. I mean, we just literally removed the ceilings on the lower level, and a crew was in there, today is Wednesday, Monday, to begin to do some probes on the HVAC system. We know that that's one of the ways in which water came to the lower level. So we need to evaluate all of the mechanics and get a sense for what can be cleaned, what might need to be removed and replaced, what might need to be repaired.